Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
I need to go beyond transactional relationships where we can talk about deep realities about our lives, discouragements we face.
Yes.
So we tell men who are leading the home to remember that these are guests.
Yes.
They should not overrule the original intention of God, that the two are becoming one.
Number one code of entering a man's world is honor.
Yes.
There is no man that can ever be in a relationship where he feels dishonored.
On the functional side, there's a need for care.
Good evening, viewers. My name is James Ireri. This show is Unveiled. We are glad and humbled to have your company once again this evening. What a privilege to be able to come and connect, to be able to come and share, listen to counsel and wisdom from very great men around here. And I'm looking forward for the conversation. This is a great opportunity to learn and to be able to update our knowledge, to be able to learn from one another. And it's such my humble privilege to welcome these gentlemen, my great guests who have been very supportive to this show. And I'm looking forward for this conversation. So without much ado, please, let's start off from extreme right.
Okay, thank you very much, Bwana James, for inviting us. My name is Ernest Nyingi, legacy leadership consultant and execution coach. I enjoy, and my vision is to add values and add value to individuals and organizations in three simple words: in success, in leadership, and legacy. I feel that if individuals, especially men, will be able to enjoy those three things, their lives will be better.
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Bwana Ernest. He's a gentleman who always brings acronyms here. So we're going to expect more acronyms today. Karibu sana. Bwana Boniface?
Yeah.
Yes.
Once again, I'm delighted to be on this platform. My name is Boniface Nyoike. I love empowering men to be authentic, and always glad to be on this show to just share some of what we've learned along the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Great resources around here, and we are in for a great time, and to be able to help men, to be able to help one another, to be able to learn from one another. And I've discovered that men sometimes block their lives from learning more. I think they reach at a point and they feel that whatever they have learned is sufficient for them to navigate. But I also believe that every knowledge acquired makes you a better person.
Absolutely.
Vis-a-vis working only with whatever information you have.
Yes.
So I believe that this show is for purposes of empowerment, refreshing, those those refresher courses. So the government and the organizations take their employees to keep you posted on the latest trends or the latest the knowledge that you require to navigate in these murky waters of manhood, isn't it?
Yes.
I believe that we shall have a great moment, and people receiving us from all over, thank you so much for connecting with us. So, karibu to the conversation. I feel that we should continue with the conversation we had some time back, but now major on the people that interact with you at a very personal level. Remember, we were handling previously how to navigate or how to manage external influence from workplaces. And today we are going to deal about navigating around those close associates of yours. Those can bring external influence in your life, both positive and negative, and how to filter and how to remain with those things that really are helpful to your life, isn't it? And also in the other section, probably deal with how we can also deal with external influences as men in regarding to our relations, either at home, our relatives and family, isn't it? Great. So to kick off our conversation, Brother Ernest,
Yes.
you look very set because I know you're a people person. You're passionate about people. I know you're passionate about accountability, and also we are bringing this concept of can people be influenced negatively or positively by the associates they keep? And how do you balance and bring the truth from these people to help you in your life?
All right, I think the Bible is very clear on the issue of influence. In fact, they say, how can two walk together unless they agree?
True.
So there's an element of life on life.
Yes.
As you do life, our attitudes, our actions, how we do things.
Yes.
I am very blessed with very rich relationships of people I have journeyed with over time. I mean, close to around 20, 25 years.
Yes.
Of very neat relationships. And one of the things I found is that because of those relationships, there are certain trajectories of life I've taken that I would never have taken. For example, just, one of the examples is becoming a real man.
Yes.
Over the course of time, the relationships I had and guys who we got saved around the same time, we have pushed each other towards being a real Christian man.
Yes, yes.
And there are mistakes I have avoided. There are things I did not do. I could have done. I could have been left, right, relationships.
Yes.
I literally, because of one man being very close to me and my first mentor and coach,
Yes.
Reverend John Baila, one of the things he told me is, if you're not planning to be in a relationship, to be married in the next 7 years, why should you be in a relationship? And that man impacted life on me. That close relationship for 7 years was not in a relationship. Now, most people here, they're like, Ernest, how is that even possible? When all of us are having fun, enjoying ourselves between 20 and 27, you are single and satisfied. How does that work? But you see, I found someone who gave me wisdom and taught me to question my why I'm doing things. And I've been able to question over time. There are mistakes. My ministry of working with young people in mentorship would not have the value that I would have if I didn't have that close relationship. Of someone telling me, Ernest, no, we will not have you be in relationships, you're not planning to get married. So the day you're ready to get married, we started discussing relationships then. Am I saying I didn't have friendships? No. But I never got the relationship into just an emotional spree. Why? There was somebody in my life who became a positive influence in my life and said, Ernest, don't do that. Guess what? Because of that decision, every year there were friends of mine who were at liberty to enjoy relationships. And they would keep telling me, Ernest, you are boring.
I think you need to differentiate. When you say relations, just
boyfriend, girlfriend relationship.
Thank you.
There's actually one girl who said, why don't you choose one woman and stay with her instead of being a general guy?
Yes.
Why this? Because they are like, you're standing out, you're looking odd and off. Instead of being with people and we see you in 1 or 2 relationships, this guy just told me stay. Why is that lady telling me that? Because I'm really going against the grain. Why am I going against the grain? Because there was a positive influence in my life for someone who told me reasons for relationships.
I think that's a point. Having a significant person that can speak to your life, that can help you and be very forthright with you and tell you areas or things that can make you better or put you in a better position, isn't it? I think Boniface, as we go to the conversation, Ernest has just overemphasized the importance of not just filling the space of a friend, but having real, authentic people that can be of great influence to your life to become a great person. Sometimes when we speak with men around, you find when you ask them, who are your friends? They struggle because they are not sure because some of the men that I've interacted with, they don't keep relations with men, other fellow men, and it becomes very difficult to deal or to speak to their lives when issues are not going right. So what would you like to speak about that?
The scripture begins by telling us it is not good for a man to be alone.
Yes.
And I think part of the challenge that I see with us as men and the way we relate is that a lot of our relationships are very transactional.
Wow.
We relate based on activity and not based on reason.
Yes.
So you find that once the activity is not there, take an example of how most churches would do a men's meeting. There has to be a nyama choma.
Yes.
There has to be a football match. So you find that when you remove those activities, these men are empty of relationships. And it's because there is a script of relationship that we've been sold to by the world where you relate on the surface level and you're not able to develop relationships that go into the deeper reality of who you are. And one of the things that I've come to find is it takes a lot of effort to build those kinds of relationships. If I come and I tell you there's a Gor Mahia match, let's go and watch. It's easy to tag you along. But if I tell you, let's take a retreat, let's go and have a man-to-man conversation. Let's sit over coffee for 2 hours and talk about what's going on in our lives. You actually realize that a lot of men are not able to navigate to that level of relationship. And why is that so? We have a masculinity that is big on ego and low on humility. Because for you to go into deep relationships with other men, you need the humility, first of all, to stop trying to be the man and actually just be a man and come and remove the title, I'm a pastor, I'm a leader, I'm a CEO, and just come as a man and engage with a certain level of vulnerability. So I think the first thing that I want to point out to men is transactional relationships can never help you in the day of adversity. If you look at the life of David, for example, he had a relationship with Jonathan, and the scripture says that their relationship was so deep that it was actually like between a man and a woman. And that's one of the things that I encourage men. And you may not have many relationships like those, but for the sake of the well-being of your heart, the well-being of your future, you need 2 or 3 men around you that you can be very raw and very honest with, and that can also just help you to navigate to the future, as opposed to just pacifying or covering up for your mistakes. They can understand where you are, but they can also call you out to a higher place as a man. And it takes a lot of humility to actually say, I need to go beyond transactional relationships, where we can talk about deep realities about our lives, discouragements we face, discontentment we may be experiencing, frustrations we are going through. And it's actually been said that one of the reasons why women live longer than men is because women go beyond transacting to actually having deep relationships. And men have a lot to learn from women about relationships. I'm not saying we become women. I'm saying that we need to...
Remember, this is a man's show.
This is a man's show, yeah. I'm saying we need to learn to get to that place where we can develop deeper relationships with other men. Of course, without becoming women.
Yes. I like the way you said men are very transactional. Transactional relationship.
Absolutely.
When there is a deal, people are very much gathered towards a certain goal. When that deal is done and it's closed, and they scatter to different places, and they'll find their way in the future if their paths meet once upon a time. And I think I've also drawn something from that conversation, probably the transactional part of it. That's what I wanted to capture. They say men are very good in covering for one another.
Absolutely.
So for those kind of transactions, they are very engaging. You know, they'll always first cover their fellow man before they know what's a problem. And when they said, were you with so-and-so? Before even they know what's a problem, they already said, yes, we are good to go. Ernest, what would you like to say about that?
Well, I don't know which part of the question, but I would like to first make a comment with what
I wanted you to comment on what Boniface has just
said. Men should move their relationships from transaction to transformation.
Yes, that's what I wanted.
And the idea of transformation is that I have deep relationships with men who can push the agenda of God for my life.
Yes.
You see, a man in psychology, there's what is called the blind self. There's a space in where you don't see yourself, but people see in you. You need men who can cover you. And the idea of covering you is they can call it out. If they need to call it out, they can encourage you. You know, you have someone who you can share. Most people say men don't have emotions. That's actually a lie. Because we are actually made, we have an emotional side of us that makes us do crazy things. Just look at men watching football and tell me they don't have emotion. You know, they have emotion. But you know, there's a way we put our emotions in external things, not internally. And we like to challenge men and say, you actually need a man who you can tell. Why is the rate of men and depression and the mental health becoming a challenge? Men are suppressing emotions. You need a space where you can come and tell a man, I am feeling weak. Right now, this temptation, imenikalia. You know, you need men, you need accountability of people who can actually tell you, you told us you will do this. Why are you not doing it? Without such relationships where they are emotional, they are mental, they are physical, but they're also spiritual, a man does not have the chance of, you know, living a full life the way God intended. And Jesus walked with 12 men. How much more a normal man? Why did he have to have, you know, 12 men? He had 3 close men, and he had John. He literally had 12, 3, and 1 of people who he could do life with. If a man does not realize that he actually needs close relationships that are so deep, he will not be able to. I like to say this: if God is triune,
Yes.
is Trinity,
Yes.
God, Father, Son, how much more should a man have, a close relationship that they can do life with?
Yes.
That would be my comment. Move from transaction to transformation. Men who can impact your life completely.
Yes. Could there be a semblance of miscommunication? Because sometimes you may say one thing to a man, and they think that they're very sensitive. Yeah, they may feel that like you are crossing the border, and you are plicking or questioning their masculinity. And that can also probably affect the relations that people have with other men, because some people, they are on the edge. A simple question like this can trigger a lot of other things, unwanted attention. Yeah. So do we find situations that you want to help somebody, Boniface, but you must also tread very carefully?
And yes, men can be very territorial. I like saying men are like lions.
Yes.
They say a lion, when it becomes mature, it draws a territory of where it has its domain.
Yes.
And so for a man, every man is very territorial.
Yes.
And so one of the things we must begin to understand is for you to be able to enter the territory of a man,
Yes.
there are several passwords that you need to know that unlock that man so that he can give you access to his territory. Number one, no man wants to show weakness first.
Yes.
And no man wants their weakness to be pointed out first. Because if there is something any man fears, and I think we discussed this in an earlier show,
Yes.
men fear shame, men fear appearing weak, men fear appearing like they're being put on the spot.
Yes.
So one of the things you want to do, and especially when you want to influence a man, is to understand what is the code of entering a man's world. Number one code of entering a man's world is honor.
Yes.
There is no man that can ever be in a relationship where he feels dishonored. Whether you're talking about that man having a relationship with relatives, whether you're talking about that man having a relationship with friends,
Yes.
the password is always honor. Because that is a need that a man has. It's not something a man wants.
Yes.
Men don't want to be honored. They need to be honored. It's an internal configuration that is put inside the heart of a man that he cannot allow you to influence him if he doesn't feel that you honor him.
Yes.
And that's the technology that Abigail used. You remember when Nabal insulted David,
Yes.
and David was very angry, and his territorialism wanted him to go and kill Nabal. And this woman discovers the only way to enter this man's world is honor. So what does she do? She cooks. She creates an environment of honor where now David feels, okay, I'm being honored. Now I can open up to the influence of this person. And then I think that the next thing that also helps men to begin to open up is when they see the other person giving them permission to have a safe space. That I will not be bashed, I will not be put down, I will not be put on the spot because of this, or embarrassed. By the way, if I feel by relating with you I'll be embarrassed, I will look for somewhere else where I'll not be embarrassed. So creating that safe space where there is no putting another one down,
Yes.
but you maintain your perception of their dignity even after you've seen the dark side of their personality.
Yes.
Most men need that.
Wow.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand the technology of entering a man's world. And because they don't understand that, they are unable to
You're making it
influence them.
sound so technical.
It's not. Technology simply means an
Yes.
approach to
Yeah,
entering a
I'm
man's
just
world.
imagining it's like a firewall
Yes,
in
it
a
is a
computer.
absolutely.
So you've said the first way to break that firewall is honor.
Honor.
The next
honor.
one is
You
making
must
them
create a safe
safe
space.
space. Wow.
A safe space where if I feel that my dignity will be preserved even after my dark side is seen,
Yes.
then I'm more open to be able to allow that influence to enter into my life. I think the third thing that I would want to mention very quickly, that I think is an oversight for very many people.
Yes.
Many men want their voice to be heard.
Okay, after all is said,
After all is said and done,
They want their
I may
voice.
not be right, I may not have it all together, but can
Hear me
I
out.
at least be heard? And the reason why men keep quiet is because men find very few environments where their voice is given a room to be heard. right? Most men are in rooms where they are told everything about them and everything to vilify them and to show them why their voice does not need to be heard. I mean, think about when a man loses a job and he goes to a relative to ask for help.
Yes.
You know, they first of all say, you need to get your act together first. I mean, you cannot be a man and you're sitting at home and you're betting and you're gambling, trying to, you know. So men need to know that their voice matters. And when men know that their voice matters, and one of the things, by the way, you find about Jesus that is very unique about Jesus, he gave men an opportunity to be heard. He comes and he asks them, who do you say that I am? He gives them the privilege of voice.
Wow.
And a lot of environments don't give men the privilege of voice. So what do men do? They come to church, they don't find the privilege of voice. They go to a bar where there is a privilege of voice.
Yes.
So where a man is heard is where a man will go and give his voice to be heard here.
Wow, powerful. Honor, making them
Safe space and voice.
Then voice. Wow. Wanasema mwanaume ni sauti.
Absolutely.
Yes, Ernest. I feel that some men have also been suppressed of some sort. And that, especially that part of the voice, they may not be perfectly right. They may not be having a clue of whatever they are saying, but that voice of being heard in a very fair environment is lacking in the spaces they operate in, either at home, either with friends, or even with their family members, isn't it? They've already passed a certain judgment, and they think this person cannot bring anything on the table in terms of wisdom and counsel. And we find a very sad scenario playing out in our today's environment, Boniface, if you allow me to say this, Ernest, that when our sisters, God has blessed them and elevated them in their life, and when they go to their family circles, the men around the family do not have a voice. Just because they are not able to probably partake in those projects that are being done, they lack a space to speak out. And that has really suppressed the voice even further and making them even be intimidated by life and end up feeling like they're worthless.
Absolutely.
Yes. Ernest, would you like to say something about that?
Well, one of the ways to support a man's voice, and through scripture, I think God has brought the idea of honoring a man and showing him God gave him space, God gave him an assignment. A man and an assignment they go together. But beyond what a man does, there's who a man is.
Yes.
And one of the things that people who are dealing with men, whether boys or your husband, if you have a husband, whoever, as you are dealing with a friend,
yes,
as long as you mention a man,
yes,
there are three simple things for me in terms of building the voice. Number one is care.
Okay.
Most men don't feel cared for because they're the ones who are always caring and doing things. Every man appreciates a space where you can say, how are you doing? How are you? What's happening in your world?
Yes.
What's working? What's not working? Every man responds to actually care. In as much as men are told, love your wife, they also need to be loved. And most men have a deep need, as you talk about honor and those things, and they are very key. On the other side, on the emotional side, on the functional side, there's a need for care. And God was very clear across scripture in terms of I love you, in terms of where are you, in terms of what are you doing. Number two is a share. Men need a space, and the idea of just connection and relationships. Men have a need to be in a space where they can actually talk. Men in bars, men in church. Every man needs a space where they can actually be true. And they may not have 17 people to talk to, but every man needs a space where they have a few people who they can actually be true with. And talk about, this is what I'm fearing. These are my scare spaces. These are my, these are all the things that I am going through. And still, beyond that, be accepted. I've had the privilege of working with men for some 15 years. Just guys I picked up, high school, college, and journeyed with them till they got married and moved on. Those three things are actually things that I saw. One was, if they know you love them and you check ukwaje, just calling you to check how you are. How can I pray for you today? This week, what worked well? Did you manage life? Did it manage you? Number two, what are you dealing with right now? Yes. And you talk to me, wins, losses. But then thirdly, dare. The idea of dare here is challenge men. I've had the privilege of challenging certain young men who are in college and now they are pastors.
Wow.
Just seeing that transformation, because the goal was to help this man see that you can be more. You see, let me give you an example. There's one year in a group of 10 men.
As you wind up for the small
Yes. We had a group of 10 men. I can talk more about it, but let me say this. One of the things we challenge each other is to dare to be more. Wow. We are going to finish, God's assignment. Yes. So care, share, and dare.
I want us to hold there. No. Care, share, and dare. Because in the next show, Ernest is going to tell us, he's just talking about whether life is managing you or you're managing it. Yeah. Let's take a small break. We'll be back shortly. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our today's show, Unveiled. We've got a very interesting conversation with this great gentleman talking about pertinent issues and issues that affect men in regards to how they associate with their fellow men and how they can filter and be able to benefit from influences from other people and to be able to know how to benefit from interactions they have with other men. And it was in that space that Ernest was sharing with us about the very core things that men feel connected with. And he was talking about caring, sharing, and daring. Yes. Please, would you pick it from there?
Okay. So we said before the break that every man needs care. And the idea of care is just a space where he's loved for who he is, not just what he does or what he brings to the table. Secondly is the whole idea of sharing, a space where he can be vulnerable and talk about both challenges and changes he wants in as much as he has wins. Yes. And then thirdly is the whole idea of dare. And dare here, we are just talking about challenging a man to become better. Every man has, potential that is latent. And yes, as the late Miles Monroe said, yes, potential is inherent, and usually the real leave maybe at 10%. Challenging a man to become more and become better. Yes. Men love challenges. That's why here there's a rare challenge, there's a what challenges. Helping men to dare and become better. And I was talking about the 10 large men. Yes. We talk about one particular young man in that group of 10 men that I was journeying with. Yes. Now this young man was actually in primary. Yes. In part of that group, was getting into high school. And we challenged him that one day you can actually become someone who's overseeing young people. Yes. Right now, as we talk, he's a youth pastor in a church. What changed was us telling him, you see, that we are reading the Bible. We are holding each other accountable. 1 year, I remember we went for the only 4 Keshas we didn't go. 4 Fridays only in a whole year. By bringing that, we are telling him, your spirituality leads in everything you do. I'm not surprised he's a youth pastor because he memorized Galatians. Yes. So challenging him to be more and to do more becomes key. Wow. In terms of helping men and journeying with them, their care and share, those are huge. Yes. Yes. Wow. Boniface, we have just been introduced to that dimension of the part that really the men really resonate with, and that can break that firewall and give them the password to communicate to them in a way that they can understand. And sometimes you can be communicating to somebody, but you're not in the same wavelength. Yeah. You are in a higher frequency and they're in a lower frequency. And it may not be very helpful. Do we find situations that men probably are not able to connect with the message because of the messenger?
And it's more often than the way the message is packaged. Yes. As opposed to the messenger. Yes. A man can receive a message for so long as it's packaged to speak to what are his inner realities. Yes. And inner realities are some of what I've talked about. He feels honored, he feels validated, he feels it's a safe space. But having said that, I think I want to point out something that I think is very important. Yes. And it's what I call the law of timing. Men are very time sensitive. Yes. there are certain conversations, for example, a man does not want to have when he's under pressure.
Yes.
There are certain conversations a man does not have when he's processing too much in his head. And you need to be able to read. And especially, I'm going to speak to the ladies here.
Please
and say, especially when you're trying to influence a man, you've got to be very aware of the timing.
Yes.
When he's tired, when school fees is beckoning, when there's a lot of pressure around him, there are certain conversations that are emotionally draining. You don't want to bring at that point. When a man is vulnerable, for example, he's lost a job, that's not the time to begin pressurizing him and reminding him that by the dowry you've not even paid all of it, and you need to be aware of timing, because for a man, timing determines whether the message will be accepted or it will be rejected. And when people who interact with men understand timing, then they gain a great advantage in their ability to influence men. And when they don't, they undo the whole equation of trying to be positive influences in the lives of men.
Wow.
Yeah.
About timing.
Timing.
There's something you can say at a particular time, and
you mess it
hits the wrong key.
You mess it up.
And then you don't get even any response.
Yes. And especially, and one of the ways also to read the timing of a man.
Yes.
And I'm not promoting escapism here.
Yes.
But there are times you will engage a man and he'll tell you, I'm not comfortable having that conversation right now.
I think it's important to be honest.
Don't push it on. Because when you push it on, that man has already erected a firewall around their mind. They're not listening to you. Because in their minds, they are not feeling like they're emotionally ready for them to engage. And again, I think something else that I'll say to wives, if you've had a conflict with a man, don't send him a text and tell him, we need to talk.
Yeah, we need to talk.
That already creates a certain defensive in the ego of a man. Wait for him to come home. And allow the environment to naturally gravitate towards that conversation. Again, it goes back to timing.
Yes.
And when we don't understand that about men, we end up antagonizing them unnecessarily and losing influence with them.
And maybe
Ernest, we need to talk.
Yeah, let me say something on that one.
We need to talk.
We need to talk, Ernest.
Yes.
So one of the things that I think is key, and again, alluding to what my brother is saying, a man, the goal of correcting a man, let's assume that a man is genuinely wrong.
Yes.
And the two things you cannot afford to do, one is to accuse him. He's already down. One of the ways I see women missing it is you come and tell someone and you're accusing them. If something happens, before you judge and create a book out of it, it's good to come and say, I have seen this thing happening. Please tell me what's happening.
Yes.
Not you. You're a liar. You're a thief. You're an adulterer. I remember dealing with a situation with a couple, and they were having serious issues. Do you know after everything was said and done, I called the man to the side and said, what's the real issue here according to you? He said, I feel accused even before I say anything. So a situation happened that was very legit. But the way he was approached, he was accused, that was number one. Number two, he's not given time to talk and express his part of the story. And every time he shared part of the story, he's defending himself. So if you're accused and you're defending, and you're told you're being defensive, defenseful, what is the room for you? So I tell ladies, is it the goal of correcting, helping this person get better and move the relationship together?
Yes.
If that's a goal, then do what you can to make sure that the goal is what is meant.
Yes.
It's not about the fight. It's not about winning.
Yes.
It's I want this person to be able to get this perspective.
Yes.
So if I have to find him in the right space so that we can have that conversation, then let's have the conversation when he can actually give the positive result you want.
I like that, what you're saying. You know, in our previous show, he was very hard on the men. Now he's coming closer and...
I have to be truthful.
Yeah, you have to be... You're a honest man.
Yeah.
And I love that. So what you're saying is women should not be accusers of brethren, isn't it?
Yes.
They should not act the
there's a role they shouldn't play.
Yes,
it has a player.
It has a player already.
Yes,
the accuser of brethren.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So, and what you're saying is that give them the men the benefit of doubt and a room to explain and room to amend things, isn't it?
Yes.
And we agree that that quote of we need to talk is not necessarily shouldn't be framed in that way because the motive is to have a kind of a conversation that will be healthy and helpful, not one that is looking like the other person is coming with an upper hand in the conversation, isn't it? And I think, as you said, men need a place that they feel that they are safe to communicate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, this is a very interesting conversation. And let's tilt it a bit, yeah? And bring other external influencers. You know, in a setup of a situation of a relationship and stuff like that, you will meet and interact with relatives from both sides of the family, either from your side or from these sides. And we want to see, how do we check? How do we put a check? Because sometimes we can get good information, as you said, but wrong timing. You know, I remember, I like that, yeah? Good information coming in, but at the wrong time. From a concerned person, let's say a father, communicating a message to the son, which has a ripple effect to the family, isn't it? How do you put a check, especially when it comes to moderating what is coming from relatives and family in terms of whatever issues they have? For example, your parent gives you a hint of somewhere you can improve on your parenting, but they do it at the wrong time, and it hits your wife the wrong way, or it hits you the wrong way from either side. Please take it from there.
Okay, so I say that in a marriage relationship, to just give it context, people have an idea of what you should do.
True.
Whether you agree to it or not.
Yes.
So the Bible is clear that two become one.
Yes.
They didn't say three.
Yes.
So there is a living and a cleaving in a relationship. And the idea of living here is not just a physical, there's a mental. Any influence I had before I got married to Esther, once we are together, it becomes external. It becomes nice thoughts and nice ideas, not truth for me. Because if I'm going to build a relationship with my wife, I need external forces to be lesser, where we agree. When we do premarital counseling, to give it context, we tell guys who are getting married, please remember that the two of you are becoming one. So two words are coming together.
Yes.
People may have an opinion. Maybe your dad was influential. Maybe your mom was. Maybe a certain auntie or uncle was influential. Once you're together, every other opinion has to pass through your partner first.
Yes.
And they may have a great idea. They may even have a Jethro idea. You know, he came and he has a nice way. But if the wife is not central,
you call it a Jethro idea.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, he comes with the how to organize and help a nation in terms of accountability and leadership.
Yes.
And that's a huge thought. But if it is going to affect the marriage, it becomes a good thought that the two of us get to talk about, agree, not pick the thought and say, I have said this is how it's going to go.
Yes.
The Bible is very clear on 1 Peter. It says this, that we've been given the grace of life as a couple.
Yes.
So the two of us are the primary force of how that marriage will go.
Yes.
So any wisdom we receive must be checked. And if it doesn't agree to the two of us, there's a man leading, but there's also the woman following. But please remember, the two words that I use, submission and sacrifice, mean the same word. In terms of we are willing to give, forgo ourselves for the sake of our partner. So I say when information or ideas or even projects come from externals, they must be vetted within the confine of the relationship.
Wow. Boniface, would you like to pick something about that?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I want to encourage, especially men, once they get married, you must develop boundaries around your relationship.
Yes.
You must filter everything that comes into your marriage from the standpoint that your first team member is your spouse.
Yes.
And so every other thing that comes is secondary, whether it's coming from your favorite uncle or your favorite auntie. There has to be a boundary that filters it so that if it's not good for the team, it's not welcome here. And the team here is you and your spouse.
Yes.
I've had instances where relatives have got very good ideas about what we should do about even things about parenting our kids, where we take them out. And sometimes that is based on the understanding of what we should do.
Yes.
But remember, you're not running your relationship based on other people's understanding of what you should do.
Yes.
You're building that relationship based on your mutual understanding with your spouse about what is best for this institution. If you keep borrowing without vetting and creating boundaries around how much influence comes in, then you end up running a marriage that pleases other people but ends up destroying or imploding from the inside because you are imposing external influences without building internal fortitude for the marriage. So what am I saying? Boundaries are important. You must realize that now your spouse is your first team member. Everybody else is secondary. Like Ernest said, there is a leaving, there is a departure, there is a disconnection from external realities, so that now you can give the relationship a good environment to incubate and to be able to grow into the fullness of its potential.
Wow,
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries, being very clear.
And it's interesting, the scripture says in Ecclesiastes that if you break the hedge, the serpent will bite you.
Wow.
There is always a serpent around every marriage.
Ring around.
Yes. And if you're not conscious of the need to have boundaries, that serpent is looking for the most opportune time to enter. I mean, why did the first marriage almost fragment? Because there were no boundaries.
Yes.
The serpent was having a conversation with the wife,
Yes.
and the man was there and not bringing order. And by the way, I dare say this to men, and I think it's something important to understand.
Yes.
Sometimes there are certain influences you may realize
Yes.
that are coming into the life of your wife that are not healthy for the marriage.
Yes.
It is your job as a man to call them out and actually say, I don't feel like this relationship is good for you.
Yes.
I've had those tough conversations with my wife,
Yes.
and they've ended up being very helpful in securing the stability of our relationship. Knowing that if I don't put boundaries, there is always a snake. And guess what? Somebody said this, and I may not agree with it fully,
Yes.
but I think there's some truth to it.
Yes.
That serpents gravitate more towards women because women are very welcoming socially,
Yes.
and then they use the women to get to the man.
Yes.
So the man must also be very aware which snakes are available there. And I'm not saying again that women are talk to snakes. I'm just giving a parameter there to actually say that wrong voices usually enter the marriages more through the gateway of a woman than through the gateway of a man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Women are powerful. They are great partners
Absolutely.
and helpers
Absolutely.
in our lives.
Absolutely.
And we need them.
Absolutely.
And they need us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But I think I really, we cannot underscore that point further. But I get the point that we must not facilitate our hedge to be broken because of external influences
Yes.
around us, no matter how good willing it may be or good intended. Probably we should throw again the spanners into the works and ask ourselves, again, I've found or I've seen or heard situations where now it's not external, the internal, the children, and now because the children are also growing, they can also become influencers to negatively affect your relationship with your spouse. Because again, they are also shareholders in that family. So how should a man handle that to be able to balance and to be able to come out strongly as a leader and to be able to affirm the direction of a family, probably?
Well, I'll tell you a story with what happens in my home. So me and my wife, we are one.
Yes.
When it concerns children,
Yes.
their spirituality, their school, whatever it is, we are one. In fact, when my daughters come and they tell me, Dad, can we do this? I'll ask her, go ask mommy. And then mommy will say, go ask daddy. It's like, guys, help me make a decision. Who am I talking to?
Yes.
They've realized that once you are an item, they cannot be able to separate you.
Yes.
Kids need to know in a marriage relationships that they are actually visitors.
Yes.
We actually have a saying that
You're just hosting them.
we are hosting you temporarily around 18 years, and then you can go and live your life. So they cannot be allowed to have the central space
Yes.
in a marriage relationship.
Yes.
And every family that has one child loved more than the other, or a girl becoming a competitor to the wife,
Yes.
there are always big problems.
Yes.
And guess what? In the future, these children will live. And their model of their future marriage would be dependent on what they saw happening between the couple.
Yes.
So we tell men who are leading the home to
Yes.
remember that these are guests.
Yes.
And in as much as you want to have a nice guest experience, they should not overrule the original intention of God, that the two are becoming one. So one in mind, one in thought, that's how direction should go for
Yes.
family.
I like a Chinese proverb which says, Mugeni ni rui. Those who understand it, that a visitor is
a
just
river.
passing by. It's a river, yeah?
Yes.
Ideally, what you're trying to say, let's emphasize on building relationship and building clear and solid communication so that we don't rely on some other other players in the setup to be able to direct where the family or where the relationship is going.
Yes.
And I think I appreciate that. Boniface, because we are still within that area of boundaries, because I remember you mentioned about that. Should we continue reinforcing existing boundaries, or should you be on the lookout? Because you said serpents are ringing around us. What do you do about that?
There's one big word called discernment,
Yes.
and discernment is the custodian of boundaries.
Yes.
And here's why I keep encouraging men to be close to God, because the more close you are to God,
Yes.
the more God helps you to see an area where the boundaries is becoming tampered with.
True.
Because boundaries are there, but you cannot underestimate the potential of external enemies or influences
Yes.
undermining the boundaries you've set in place. So you must be in a place where you're spiritually alert. You must be conscious and aware of what's going on in the relationship and what are external threats that would want to tamper with the well-being of the relationship.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a great contribution. My dear guest, kindly give a parting shot to our viewers, because we are out of time. Brother Ernest?
Okay. You will face, as a man, a lot of negative or external influences from family, from friends. The biggest goal is to remember God in his wisdom created you to lead your home. Leading your home means he should be the focal influence in terms of direction, vision, all those things. So as you interact and you face different influences, remember God should be core.
Amen. Thank you so much. Boniface?
I would like to say that when you allow God to be the primary influence of your life, he allows you to mitigate and balance all other influences, so that only the influences that are for your good remain invited and the other ones are checked out. Let God be your influence.
Wow, great. Let God be your influence. It's been a great show having you around. Man Unveiled was a show. James Ireri is my name. It's great catching up with you. Let's continue building one another. Let's continue helping one another to become better men in our society, because we have a place to impact our generation. Till next time, God bless you. Bye.